as tips and tricks that I found worked well for me over my virtual 3 years, as other panelists have said, is to just plan everything in advance. Read everything in your learning management system, librarian buzzwords there, whether it's Blackboard or Canvas. Go through course by course to know exactly what's going to be expected of you throughout the semester, how to get in contact with your professors, with your advisors if need be, just so you have all of that information available to you and you know where you're going to need to go in order to find it in the future. I would also recommend using multiple calendars. I like having things physically written out in a planner that I carry with me daily, but I also really like having everything on a digital calendar where I can set alarms and reminders to include important university and program dates, any deadlines and due dates per course. And I'm somewhat of an overachiever and I like to color code all of my deadlines for efficiency. So if I'm flipping through for the week, I know what I have to do for each course just by the corresponding color. It does take a little bit of extra time at the beginning of the semester, but I found that it worked really well in just keeping me as organized as possible. So then I knew what I needed to plan for week to week, and then anything that needed to be added in or altered, I could do so pretty easily as I approached those due dates and deadlines. Group projects still exist virtually. They are still not as fun as anyone wants them to be, but it is important to know your strengths going into group projects, especially virtually, because you aren't going to have that face-to-face interaction to be ordered to kind of feed off of the rest of your group. That being said, don't be afraid to take on new roles and learn new skills. Like I said, again, I'm an overachiever and I like to make things pretty and edit all of my presentations. So I often found myself playing the role of editor in my group projects, whether it was creating a presentation or going through research papers or documentation, just to kind of clean things up here and there. I don't typically enjoy being the leader of groups because I don't like being at the forefront, and I find public speaking or just presenting to be something that I really have to prepare myself for. But in order to learn and to grow, you have to put yourself into those uncomfortable situations. So on the occasions where, a leader didn't immediately emerge within my group, I decided I wanted to take the risk of the opportunity, and I, stepped up and said that I would take on the leader role. And I found that it did help me grow. Still not something I enjoy, but something that I have to do in my day-to-day life now as the manager of a branch library. As Janine and Dr. Fahey and Dr. Robinson all mentioned, communication is vital, especially in a virtual program. Ask questions, email your professors, interact with your classmates, whether it's emailing them, getting texts or contact information to text group members, comment on blog posts. Just make sure you're interacting as much as you can, especially within the virtual learning environment. You will learn better, your classmates will learn better, and it'll just help to make it kind of feel more of a normal, if you will. Moving into kind of resources, make sure you are very familiar with what your library can offer. Check out the library website, look at contact information for your very specific subject librarians so you know how to get in touch with them if you find you need their assistance. Explore all the different electronic books, journals, and databases that your library has to offer. Utilize the interlibrary loan services, which I know aren't going to be as popular in a virtual setting, mostly because libraries may not really have a way to get those materials to you. But there has been a big upswing with throughout college libraries and academic libraries in loaning e-materials. And we are finding agreements on how to send and loan entire ebooks. So those options have changed and they look a little bit differently. And I will talk about that a little bit more later, but they're still available and you should definitely still utilize them. Another wonderful resource is your local public library, like for how this presentation is coming to you today. They will have some of the generalized books and less of the academic texts that colleges and university libraries will have. And they're great study spaces if you find that it's easier to get to instead of going to your college library. Make sure you wear a mask, at least for now. But I found that I was using my public library a lot, even for a lot of my library and information science materials. Thank you, Bull Run. I also found that a lot of my friends were wonderful resources. I am friends with a couple different people in other universities. So I was able to kind of talk to them and see what they had to offer and utilize some of the different resources that maybe either San Jose or Mason or George Mason didn't have, but I was able to use those resources through friends. My last tip for successful virtual studying or learning is also studying, like Janine said. Make sure you plan to set aside time. So you have your set schedule, you know when you need to study in order to meet your approaching deadlines, and you know what you need to get done. Instead of doodling, I found that background music really helps me focus. A lot of video games actually have very progressive soundtracks that I found really get you in the mood, and just kind of get your brain focusing on, okay, this is what I need to do to accomplish this goal or accomplish this side quest of preparing for an exam or an upcoming deadline. And it just kind of keeps you going and keeps you motivated when you have something of a good beat, I found. All right. So speaking specifically to tools that college libraries can offer, the main one right now with the COVID climate is of the electronic resources. Most universities will offer a plethora of ebooks. There are newspapers, journals, and specific lib or subject guides. I cannot recommend these guides enough because they are put together by librarians who are experts in their subjects. They have a lot of input from faculty on the different databases that they use to recommend to students. So they're using the very core databases that are going to be the best options for studying and learning and compiling different resources to complete projects and exams and what have you. A lot of college libraries also offer workshops, especially for incoming freshmen or people new to an academic library setting or just a college setting. They will discuss library and research basics. They'll take you through all of the different resources that libraries have to offer, and including how to kind of start the research process and what that's going to entail. A lot of these workshops will also cover specific databases. Like ProQuest has a dozen different databases, all focused on different subjects. So some of these workshops will go into how to navigate these databases, where to find the best resources, how to identify whether something is peer reviewed or not. So they're a very vital resource that a lot of people don't actually know that libraries offer. There are also some on various technologies available. George Mason specifically offers some on Adobe products. We offer for InDesign. We show graduate students how to create research posters. So they're not research specific or what you think a library might have to offer, but they're usually useful and offer a lot of different, kind of a variety of techniques. Another big push recently has been virtual reference, or VR, as librarians tend to call it. And there's been a huge shift to this since March. A lot of librarians already have virtual reference systems, but they were somewhat basic. So come March, towards the tail end with COVID really affecting the states, we all had to hit the ground running with revamping our virtual appointments, how we handled just the flow of chat and conversation. And now we have a pretty well-functioning virtual reference system at Mason, I like to think, that is staffed by librarians, paraprofessionals, and a paraprofessional within the library is someone who works there. It's a staff member like myself, who may or may not have a library degree, but isn't technically a librarian because their job description doesn't say librarian. They're not considered faculty. So they're still a professional within their field, but they just don't hold a librarian position, but still important. College libraries also then feature these reference or subject librarians who commonly have masters or PhDs within their fields. So they're considered experts, and they are wonderful resources because they know how to get through all of those databases. They know how to approach research within their fields, and they are usually very available, especially now, by appointment, phone, or email. You can probably run into some of them on campus in the coming semester, but they have been wonderfully about making themselves as accessible as possible given the circumstances. And they can help guide you through the research process, like I mentioned. A little bit more on Interlibrary Loan. Usually this service is used to retrieve materials from local libraries, national libraries, and even some international ones, if the home library doesn't have something. So if a patron is looking for an item at George Mason that American University has, we can use Interlibrary Loan through a consortial agreement to get the item to the George Mason patron. Or I know our Interlibrary Loan office has received items from Japan or from Germany that are a little bit more rare and just not held here within the States. This cost is covered by tuition, so it's not something that the patron has to worry about, or the student has to worry about paying kind of at an ad hoc basis. It's all rolled into one, and it's just a service that the library offers. They also usually offer reserves, which are a collection of required texts for courses also at no cost. It's a separate collection that usually has a loan period of anywhere from 2 hours to 7 days, but they are textbooks that professors have explicitly requested that the library purchase because they're going to be used within their course. Reserves are going to be looking a little bit differently this year, but it's still a service that students can utilize.